The book of Exodus. So the book begins with they're multiplying. The Israelites are multiplying. They got the Spirit of God. They know how to reconcile, just as God reconciles with us. We're starting to do the reconciliation ourselves with one another. And because of the reconciliation, we are multiplying. But this is concerning problem for the Egyptians. They say, look at all these foreigners. They're multiplying. They're going to be more than us. So we got to do something about this. So they impose on them slavery. They put them in bondage, and they make them work hard. Think of that for a minute. Here you are. You're a young Israelite, and the Egyptian taskmaster comes over and says, "Get those bricks on top of that pyramid up there, and do it quickly." That's a long day, right? So at the end of the day, you come home, you're tired, your wife is there. "Oh dear, you look so sore, it is so painful." So you give a hug, and what do? You multiply. That's how you multiply. Now the Israelites could get mad, and they could retaliate and start a war, and then half of them would probably all be destroyed. But they don't choose that path. They choose love instead, not hate. And that's the reason why they're multiplying. So they got the Spirit of God inside of them. So that's not working. They're multiplying now even more because they got that Spirit of God, that reconciliation. And so the Egyptians are now go to the next step, which is they're going to create lifeless voids for the Israelites. So what they're going to do is they're going to take the children and throw them in this water, in the Nile River. Now think of the Nile River as that water ball where it's just death. It's just going to be a death zone for all the Israelite males. But Moses gets some land. God provides land, which is this basket for Moses. So out of this lifeless void, God's hand is there and creates this little piece of land that saves Moses. So again, that constant theme of creation and saving are being put forth. And so the Israelites will be saved through Moses. So Moses goes and sees later on, he's in a desert, and he sees a bush burning, but the bush isn't burning, and then he encounters God. And the first thing God does when he sees Moses, he introduces himself as, "I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Why does God introduce himself like that? Because he's the God of promises. Those are the people that God made promises. And so he promised that he was going to save his people. So God has this terrific plan, gives to Moses. "Moses, I want you to go in and bring the people to Mount Horeb. We'll make a deal, and then I'm going to bring them into this rich garden in Canaan." And so Moses says, "Okay, that's fine, I'll do that." No, that's not what Moses says. He spends the next couple of chapters telling God why his plan is really bad. So Moses says to Abraham, he says, he says, "I'm a runaway slave with a rap sheet for murder. As soon as I go back to Egypt, they're going to arrest me and throw me in the jail. But let's pretend they don't do that. Let's say they don't throw me in jail. I'm never going to get an audience with the most powerful man in the world, which is Pharaoh. But let's say, for instance, I do. Then I'm going to be in the presence of the most powerful man in the world. I'm going to deliver you a message, which is free all your free labor, let them all go." And I'm sure that's not going to go over very well with the Pharaoh. He's going to want to show some of his muscle. But let's say, for instance, he thinks that's a really great idea and he lets us go. Now we're in this desert. There's no water. There's no land. Now what are we going to do? Your plan stinks. It's not going to work. So what God says to Moses, he said, "Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're going to go into Egypt, and you are a runaway slave with a rap sheet for murder. But don't worry, I'll be with you. And yeah, you're going to go in front of Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world, and you're going to deliver my message. He's not going to like it at all, and he is going to show some of his muscle. But don't worry, I will be with you. And yeah, you're going to end up in the desert. No food, no water, no protection. Don't worry. I will be with you." That's the idea. The whole idea of the Pentateuch is being in the presence of God and what happens to us. So what's going to happen here is going to be reversal. Those that are favorable to God are always going to have food and water and protection. They're going to have all the things that you would have in a garden. The Egyptians, who are now turning their back against God, their beautiful garden, their rich garden in Egypt, and their Nile River and all their plants and everything, is slowly going to turn into the lifeless death zone. And that's through the plagues. So slowly, the more they rebel, the more the plagues. So yeah, there's no water because it's been polluted with the blood. The locusts eat up all the fields, so it's slowly turning into this desert. And then finally, the Egyptians end up in the giant water ball, which is all, they all end up dying. And that what God does to the Israelites, he cuts a path through this lifeless void, all the water. And when they're freed to go into Egypt, and they're pinned against the Red Sea, God makes a path for them. Just like he does in creation, he creates land and saves them. So the idea here is that there is a reversal now going on. Those who oppose God end up in the lifeless void. Those who are in the presence of God, I will be with you, are going to enjoy all the amenities of a garden. So that's the key here of understanding the book of Exodus. Now, here's the problem. The Israelites do not like to be saved. See, God's doing all the saving. He's doing all the heavy lifting at this point. But it's hard to be saved, because in order to be saved, there has to be something wrong. You have to be really dying or really sick or in a really bad place where there's no food or water. You have to be really desperate. But see, the thing is when God saves, he shows his greatness. See, that's when God is most visible, is when he lifts us up, when he turns the lifeless void, these disaster situations, and reverses them. That's when God is most visible. And when God is most visible, that's when we see God, and that's when we open up our mouths and praise God. When we praise God, all the nations are going to hear, and they're going to say, I like your God. Look what the God does to you. He saves you. So I want to worship your God. So that's how the Israelites are going to be partners with God in getting all the nations to worship God. So God has chose Israel. But that doesn't mean Israel is going to like it. Or it's going to be fun. It's not fun to be in a very difficult place to be saved. But so there's this constant tension between the people. We don't like the desert. We want to go back where we don't have to be saved. We want to be in a nice garden like in Egypt and have all the food. We had nice huts. We don't have to stay in these awful tents and these poisonous snakes. We want to have our own place. We want to have our own garden. And God says, well, I'm with you. I'll take care of you. But when I take care of you and I save you, that's when I'm visible to the world. That's what we want, so that the world will worship God. So that's the key to, so we're starting to understand the partnership that Israel has with God. And so they go to Mount Horeb and they make the deal. Israel said, okay, we'll do it. We'll be the ones that'll we'll be the light of all the nations, so that we'll show you off, God. We'll allow you to save us so that you can be visible to the world. We'll accept our job. And that's the second really major step, is to accept God's offer to be a partner with God in revealing God to the world. So never fear suffering, never fear difficulties, because this is a great opportunity for God to become visible in the world by way of saving us, by redeeming us, by sanctifying us. So now in the next video, we're going to talk about the end of the book of Exodus. And it's not going to be fun. Well, this exciting narrative, and now all of a sudden we're going to be talking about this really long, detailed description of a little tent. So let's talk about that in the next video.